Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of STEMgirls Virtual, where we learn all about the amazing careers in the STEM world. For those of you who are wondering, STEM means science, technology, engineering, and math. And today we are fortunate to have a wonderful guest, our very own local WLWT meteorologist, Allison Rogers. Hi, Allison. Thank you so much for
Hey,
being part of the show today.
absolutely. Thank you for having me. I'm so happy that we could virtually connect.
Yes. So without further ado, we're just going to go ahead and jump in if that's okay.
Let's do it.
Awesome. So the first question that we have for you today is, can you tell us about what your job is? Explain to us a little bit more about what a meteorologist does.
Yeah, for sure. I'm a meteorologist here at Channel 5. I'm one of four on our weather team. And my day to day is come in, forecast, put my show together, build my graphics. So everything you actually see me standing in front of on TV is something that we've built here in house. And then I present the weather for a couple of minutes to Cincinnati. And when that's done, I make sure everything is updated on our website and on our app and things like that, and update social media, those fun things. And so that's my day to day. I know that sounds super quick, but it does take 8 hours. And what you see on TV, when we're up there for just a couple minutes telling you about what's going on with the weather, is a very small slice of our day to day, but it happens to be one of my favorite parts of the day, as does forecasting and everything like that. So
Very cool. So there's all kinds of stuff, and our audience can watch you live on the
yeah.
Weather Channel on WLWT, learning all about what you do in real time, a couple days a week, it sounds like.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm on Channel 5 Wednesday through Friday at noon, and sometimes I'll be on in the evening shows reporting on different things. Kind of depends on the week and the day. But then weekend evenings at 6 o'clock, we're on Channel 5, and then again at 11 o'clock too. So yeah, if you want to tune in, Channel 5, I'll be on there.
Very cool. Our next question is, please tell us what sparked your interest in this field. Did you always want to be a meteorologist, or was it something that you grew into loving? Tell us a little bit about that.
I pretty much always loved the weather, and throughout my entire childhood, I loved watching thunderstorms develop, and I loved just everything about the weather and science too. I really liked science when I was growing up. And where I grew up on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, we were impacted by weather a lot. We would have afternoon thunderstorms pretty much guaranteed. Every afternoon a thunderstorm would pop up. And sometimes I was lucky enough to get to watch those from a safe distance on the beach and things, and it was amazing. And then of course hurricanes. We were impacted by a lot of hurricanes growing up. Some of my first memories as a little girl is sitting in my house without power during a hurricane, like coloring in my coloring book during Hurricane George. I'm like sitting there coloring and things. And then when I was 12, Hurricane Katrina hit my hometown and unfortunately did a lot of damage. It did level a lot of the town I grew up in. The downtown area was hit very, very hard. Fortunately, my house was okay. Our family evacuated, so we were safe. But I remember, being in seventh grade, that's a very impressionable age, I feel like, to have this big life event happening to you. And I just remember watching the meteorologist before the storm telling us where it's going to go, and my family making decisions, potentially life-saving decisions, based off of what they're telling us. And then watching the storm coverage during the storm and seeing all the live updates of what was going on in this place where I grew up and loved, and then coming back and actually living the reality of not having power, not having school anymore for several months because we didn't have power. It was crazy. So going through all of that really kind of was my moment where I remember very specifically sitting on the couch watching the coverage thinking, I want to be a meteorologist and I want to help people out, because these are very scary things that happen. These natural disasters, they can be very scary for a lot of people. And I just want to be able to help as much as I can, give people an idea of what's going to happen, help them make the best decision that they can so that they can come out of it knowing okay, we were safe.
Very cool. Thank you for sharing that story with us. We really do
Yeah.
appreciate it. The next question is, what is one of the coolest experiences that you've had as part of your career?
Um, I got to cover a lot of very cool things. So the other really great thing about my job is I get to report too. And when reporting and weather combine, and it's like the best day ever. I get to cover weather events and report on them, especially when they're positive, like the Great American Eclipse. And that was probably one of my favorite things that I've gotten to cover so far. And it was just so cool coming, like seeing the entire nation just be so happy about something, and especially when it involves space and science.
Yeah,
And getting to cover that real time. I was in Hopkinsville, Kentucky for that, and getting to be there. I mean, that was like the place to be for the Great American Eclipse because it was totality for the longest period of time. So getting to actually see that with my own eyes and then getting to cover it for the area that I was working for at the time, and getting to show the people who weren't able to get out to Western Kentucky, like, here's
hmm
what it was like. And it was the coolest experience. And I got to share it with them. It was really, really fun. And so those experiences where I get to cover positive weather things and cover them, that's just, I love it.
that sounds like a really awesome experience. Our next question is, what is a challenge you faced on your journey to become a professional meteorologist, and how did you overcome that challenge?
So I'd say the challenge growing up was finding a female role model that I could um, look up to in the broadcast meteorology world, because there weren't many at the time, and still it's a pretty male dominated field. And so having someone to look up to and watch, it not being able to find as many examples of women in the industry was kind of hard. But the good thing is now it seems like there's such an interest for women in STEM, and that makes me so happy. Even if it's not for meteorology, if it's for, anything, I'm just really happy to see that there are more women who are getting involved in the field because there's room for us, you know what I mean? We have something to offer, we have something to give. And seeing more and more women join just the broadcast meteorology world, it makes me really happy. And the women that are in this community, the broadcast meteorology field, are that we're so close and tight knit. And there's a Facebook group for us, and we stay in communication. We talk about different things, and it's a network of women who really tried to build each other up, and that makes me really happy.
That's awesome to hear. We love to hear about things like that. We love to hear about groups coming together and forming bonds, especially when it comes to bonds in the STEM world. So
Yeah.
that is amazing. Our next question is, what is some advice you'd like to give to any young person wanting to pursue a career in a STEM field? We actually had a community question, and I'll go ahead and read that to you now. It comes from one of our community members. She says, my fifth grade daughter wants to be a meteorologist when she grows up. She is always checking out weather books, telling me about the clouds, and she's also is fascinated with tornadoes and hurricanes. What advice would you give her about what she can do now at a young age to get a head start on this career path? This is definitely a passion that is not going away, and we love that it's not going away. We love to hear that someone is so passionate about an awesome STEM field.
Yeah, and it sounds familiar. I mean, it sounds like when I was growing up, I constantly watched the Weather Channel and, kept up with what was going on weather-wise, and that's amazing. I would say find your passion, stick with it, and even if it gets tough at sometimes, because it likely will, STEM classes are hard, but just remember the reason you got into it in the first place. And I think if you can always go back to, why did I decide to do this in the first place? You'll find that it is possible to get through these hard classes and to get through any challenges that come your way as you're making your way through your career in the STEM field. Yeah, I think, for anyone who wants to be a meteorologist, you there are so many great resources online. The National Weather Service and NOAA have a bunch of amazing different websites that have explanations geared to many different age levels. You can find explanations that would speak to a professional, like myself, who's been studying this for years and really go in depth, or you can find these different explanations that kind of break it down on an easier level for kids to understand or for high schoolers to understand, things like that. So there are a bunch of really great resources out there. If there's something specific that your daughter wants to learn about: hurricanes, tornadoes, blizzards, things like that. Just type in, into Google, how's a hurricane work? And then add that little tag of National Weather Service or NOAA, and you'll find that scientific explanation of exactly what's going on. And then too, I remember being little and reaching out to the chief meteorologist where I grew up, which was actually a female. So that was really great, and very rare. And I remember reaching out to her, sending her an email like when I was very young. I had no idea what I was doing, you know what I mean? And then, a couple years later, I wound up interning with her. So you never know what sort of connection you can make with somebody. So I always encourage anybody to just reach out. And if, your little girl or boy, if your kids are just super interested in a field, and let's say it is meteorology, and they watch somebody on TV who they really seem to connect with, it's probably worth reaching out to them, see if they'll even respond or anything like that. And you never know what kind of connection you can make based off of that email.
That's exactly right. Thank you, Allison. Always reach out, always go for it. You never know what kind of amazing connection you're going to make. And the more you reach out, the better off you'll be, and the more you have a chance to learn. So we always encourage every one of our audience members to always reach out, keep pursuing those goals, keep pursuing those dreams, and keep pursuing the knowledge around
Yeah,
you.
for sure.
Learning is so important, and we want
And
everyone to keep learning.
yeah, for sure. And the weather is always changing, so there's always something to learn. Even for me now, after doing this for a couple of years, there's still so much to learn.
Very cool. Thank you, Allison. We have a couple other questions. How much reliance is there on other data like that from the National Weather Service, or does WLWT compile their own forecasts and other information for weather events? Do you guys have your own instruments and materials to chart things and stuff like that, or are you relying more so on data collected from larger organizations?
So we do all of our own forecasts here in-house. We each spend a different amount of time doing our forecasts. And so, you have the group of us here at Channel 5, the weather team, who will do their own forecasts. We'll communicate with one another. If a big event's coming, a lot of times we're in constant communication, talking about what we're seeing and what we think is going to potentially happen, things like that. But we also do look at different resources. We look at different weather models, and those weather models take observations, from what's actually happening at that moment when those observations are taken. And then that information is put into the weather models. So the National Weather Service in Wilmington and all over the country, they send up these different weather balloons at specific times a day, a couple times throughout the day. And those weather balloons collect information like temperature, humidity, they'll collect air pressure, just different things like that the models can use. And that information is sent back to them, then outputted into the different models. So in a way, we're kind of all looking at a lot of the same stuff, but again, we're making all of our own forecasts here in-house. And then two, the National Weather Service, they put out the watches and warnings that you see as cover. So we don't have the ability or the authority to put out those different watches and warnings. We're watching for the National Weather Service to issue those. So anytime there's a thunderstorm warning or if there's a tornado warning, that's the office in Wilmington issuing it. And then our responsibility is to take that and cover it and to go on air with that information and to show you the radar, show you exactly what's going on. Here's where it is. Here's how fast it's moving. Here are the impacts that it's bringing to this town right here, right now, but here's where it's going to be in an hour. So you here in this town here, an hour away, you need to be ready for these different things to happen. Get to your safe place, things like that.
Okay, very interesting. And our final question is, I know you talked about the meteorologist in your hometown that you looked up to and reached out to. Who are some other role models that you look up to at WLWT and maybe outside of your own station as well?
Yeah. So here at Channel 5, we've got a really good team of meteorologists, and I really love being able to learn from everybody here. There's, again, always something to learn. And that's kind of always been my motto growing up, is there's always a learning experience in whatever you're going through, or whatever you're presented with. So I'm able to learn so much from the people who have been here for years, like Randy and Kevin. They've both been here for many more years than I have. So they have a lot to teach me, and they have taught me so much. And I really am so grateful that I've been able to learn as much as I've been able to learn from the both of them. And then on top of that, I look up to a bunch of different people in the TV world and meteorology world, specifically Ginger Z. She's the chief meteorologist at Good Morning America, and she is, I believe, the first female chief meteorologist for a TV network. And so she's really paved the way for a bunch of people like myself and so many other people who are interested in weather, to showing that it's possible to do these things. Just set your mind to it. It's possible to get here, to get to this point. And just watching her, you know, I've been able to learn a lot just from, I've met her once, but I don't know her, but just being able to watch her and to pick up these different things she does and being able to learn from her has been a really, really good experience that I've had. And then also another role model that I have is Robin Roberts, who also is at Good Morning America. Robin is from the same area that I grew up. She's from Pass Christian, Mississippi. I'm from Long Beach. They're right next to each other. So being able to watch somebody who grew up in the same area that I grew up, and for her to watch her, you know, on a network station is so cool. And she seems like such a nice person. And so she's another role model that I look up to too. Among many.
Those sound like awesome role models. Thank you for sharing that with us. Those are all the questions that we have today. Allison, thank you so much for taking the time to sit and chat with us this morning. We really appreciate it. We love hearing about your career and all the behind the scenes stuff. I know I learned a lot today. I'm sure audience members, you learned a lot as well. There's all kinds of behind the scenes stuff that goes into the weather report that you see on TV or on your phone app or anything like that. And it's really cool to have the opportunity to learn about that. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you so much for everything with this program, for keeping it going virtually. I'm so happy you're still able to do that. And I'm really honored that I'm able to even come on and be a part of this as well. Because, you know, growing up, this wasn't something that there weren't many STEMgirls programs. And so I'm just really happy this is a resource that's available to the public, and I'm happy to be a part of it too. So thank you.
Thank you. We're happy to be here. Audience members, thank you so much for tuning in and watching another episode with us. Please stay tuned for updates about our next episode, where we'll be learning more about another awesome career in the STEM world. And we hope to see you all very, very soon. Stay happy, stay healthy, and keep learning most of all.
Yes, for sure.
All right. Thank you, Allison. Bye, everyone.